Okay, very good. I guess so. So with that, then let's get underway. It's 7:05. Hoping to keep this, relatively brief, folks. I mean, we'll give it the time it needs, of course. But understanding that the bylaw review subcommittee has spent a considerable amount of time already back and forth on reviewing our bylaws, cleaning them up from a perspective of cleaning up the language, eliminating inconsistencies, um, fleshing out some detail around some of the bylaws. Um, but where we stopped short was in actually making material changes to the bylaws. So hopefully you've had a chance to review the new version of the document, and therefore can put forward any questions or any additional thoughts you'd like. The aim here of the subcommittee is to come up with a better working version of the bylaw document, because in our view, again, it had some problems, frankly, with inconsistency, some actual contradictions within the document itself. One section would say one thing, another section would say another, that would contradict the previous one. So our endeavor was to clean it up and make it make more sense. And again, without making actual material changes to the bylaws themselves. So that's kind of number one on our agenda, is to have that discussion and review. And the second item on our agenda tonight is to talk about the community rep position. So as everyone should be aware, David Foster resigned his position as community rep, so that position is now vacant. So the discussion before us tonight on that agenda item is what to do about that. It is at our discretion as a committee to fill the position now until the end of the year, so that the term technically runs to the end of I guess to August, with the new committee rep being appointed come September, or possibly simply to leave it vacant for the remainder of this year and then fill it in September. So that's the second item on the agenda tonight. And I guess as just basically discussed, we won't put anything forward in terms of a motion or anything to be voted on tonight. Rather, this is for discussion purposes to prepare us for our April meeting. Okay. Any questions on the agenda? Okay, good. All right. So let's jump then right into the bylaw document, and I'll share my screen just so we're all kind of looking at the same thing. Assuming I can find it. Desktop. Nope, wrong one. Pardon me. Okay. Does everyone see the bylaw document?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, terrific. Okay. So of course we, updated the logo. The table of contents is not yet updated, pending acceptance of kind of the contents of the document. So one of the maybe we'll do, perhaps I'll do kind of maybe a quick overview of some of the more significant changes we made. And can everyone see this okay? The magnification's all acceptable?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the first section is the terms of reference, and basically it just provides kind of the basic background as to what CPIC is, why it exists. And we did some cleanup in here. A lot of the language is the same as before. One section we cleaned up and edited was this section here as to what the goals of CPIC are. It was a bit choppy and wordy before, and we just tried to clean it up and kind of make it more succinct. So that was one thing. Membership, this is largely the same as before, maybe with just some minor editing. And again, no changes to any of the rules themselves as to, you know, Catholicity of members, that kind of thing. That's obviously under review right now by the board. Term, budget, these things all kind of stay the same in bylaw amendments. There were sections in the terms of reference, if you refer to the old version, that overlapped with the actual bylaws themselves. So where it made sense for something to be within the contents of the bylaws themselves, we left it in the bylaws and took it out of the terms of reference. So you should notice that the terms of reference section is actually a fair bit shorter than the old version, but the content that was there in the terms of reference section you'll find throughout the bylaws, because again, it was appearing in two places and in some cases was contradictory. We reordered the bylaws as well in what we thought was a more logical flow, and in this case now starting with the election process. And here's one where we took what actually happens in practice each year and documented it here. So this part has been more fully fleshed out than it was before. So you'll notice it is more robust. It's a little more specific, but also allowing for enough flexibility in, you know, timelines and whatnot, so that, you know, we don't paint ourselves into a corner each year as to strict adherence to specific, very specific dates. So words like, you know, preferably by March 1st of each year until approximately, like, you know, just allowing ourselves a time frame, but also some wiggle room, because each year is a little bit different. So that's what we did there. Community rep as well. We fleshed this out a little bit more than it was. There was really not much in there before. Additional representatives, that's pretty much the same as it was before. Orientation, I think we moved that in just by location, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. Member roles and responsibilities. Again, I just there may have been some editing in here, but not anything of significance changed. Role of community rep. This one, again, we just tried to improve the wording of it, but the theme and the idea of what the community rep does, it kind of remains the same. Yeah, and then so on throughout, filling of the committee vacancies, largely the same as before. Officers, you know, chairs and co-chairs. This is largely the same as before as well. Term of office, the same. Role of the CPIC chair is the same. Where we got into a fair bit of discussion, and this will be something for future discussion, just for kind of everyone's edification, is the difference between chair, co-chairs, and vice chairs. And again, we stopped short of making those changes, because that's something that would need to be further discussed to understand what the difference is between co-chairs and vice chairs. So if there's a material difference there, that would need to be discussed and voted on if we wanted to change that. Meetings, again, I mean, this was largely the same meeting procedures, likewise. Decision making, special meetings. Again, just some editorial work went into this content, but nothing really changed. Conflicts of interest, same thing, and that's it. So that's, you know, the 10 pages. Then the pages that follow in the appendix, of course, are the regs themselves. So that's just kind of a quick run through, folks, of the document, and now the new layout and kind of flow of the bylaws themselves. So so let me stop there and kind of let's, you know, if we can, let's open it up for discussion, and you know, and by all means, anyone else on the bylaw subcommittee, if you want to you know, speak up, share any additional thoughts or anything that you think that should be mentioned for the benefit of everyone, by all means, this is an open forum, so please go ahead. All right, Joel, thanks. For a second there, I thought, wow, we must have done like an amazing job, because like no one has a question. Go for it.
My question is on the co-chair and vice chair portions of the bylaws. I'm trying to think. I don't think we have a vice chair currently. And I don't think, as long I've been on, this is my second year on CPIC, I don't think we've had a vice chair position at all. We've had co-chairs, because I remember, Jerry, you're before Jen got burdened with the task, you were the only chair for a while, and we didn't. This debate of like, oh, should we elect a vice chair or not? We actually opted for the one chair. I'm just wondering, where has this always been the rule and we've just been ignoring it all this time, or is this something that we're proposing that maybe we want to add in?
So the way it was explained to me, Joel, when I first joined, and I put my hand up to be co-chair, vice chair, you know, whatever, alongside Karine, was that the difference between the two is that wherein both chairs are both chair, you know, people in chairperson positions are Catholic, one can be designated as chair and the other can be designated as vice chair. So the implication being that if the chair can no longer perform his or her duties, the vice chair automatically becomes chair, because the chair must be Catholic. Right. So
if I follow that logic, okay.
Yeah, let me finish. Co-chairs is in the event one of the chairs is not Catholic. So that way there's always a Catholic chair, because it's co, right? So because chair and vice chair to me denote a hierarchy, right? Whereas co are equal, right? So when it was Karine and I, we were clearly stated as co-chairs because we had to be, because Karine was not Catholic. Jen and I are both Catholic, and yet I think we just kind of declared as a committee that we'll operate as co-chairs. So that is something that we've left it alone. We haven't cleaned up the distinction, and if there should be a distinction going forward, and again, so probably not for us to solve tonight. But yeah, it is one of those things what we should revisit as we continue to work through the bylaws and clean them up. But that's how it was explained to me.
Fair enough. I mean, that makes sense as the bylaws are written right now. I guess if this might be a bit more of a hypothetical, if the membership criteria terms of whether or not you're Catholic or not, to sit on CPIC changes, then we'd have to revisit that caveat of what a co-chair, two co-chairs, one, if one is non-Catholic, the other must be Catholic, because then we could just say, well, no, just have one chair, and then we have a vice chair.
Yeah, it's a great point, because as the policy, it's a great point, Joel, because as the policy committee is reviewing it now, it could very well change, right? What the procedure says today could be very different for next year. So, yeah, it'll be something to consider. So, a couple more hands up here, Maria.
Yeah, hi. I think we're confusing two separate issues here. And in answer to one of the questions, it did always say, as you know, Jerry, the bylaws always did provide for either two co-chairs or a chair and a vice chair. And I would say, based on my experience on different committees and, corporate boards and so on, I think typically you either have two co-chairs or a chair and a vice chair. I think that's fairly standard. The idea being that you either share the positions, and if one person's not available, you either share the position of chair, and if one person isn't available, the other steps in. And like you said, in the case of a chair and vice chair, it is a bit more hierarchical, and the vice chair only steps in when the chair is not available. So I think that's the difference. I've never seen co-chairs and a vice chair. I think it's just kind of normal practice that you either have co-chairs or a chair and a vice chair. The issue of, whether the Catholicity is treated differently depending which way you're going, I think is a different issue. I think you can still, I don't see anything wrong with, we have two co-chairs and they're both Catholic, that's fine. Yeah. I don't think it needs to be, you have co-chairs if one's not Catholic, and otherwise you have, I don't think it needs to, that determines, I think what determines it, and it's not even up to the committee, I would say, it's up to the individuals. Do you want to be co-chairs together, work together, or do you want to be co-chair or a chair and vice chair? I think it's really up to the people that are in the roles. Certainly, I guess we could have bylaws that say it's this way or that way, but I like the idea that it's up to the individuals, because it's what commitment you're willing to make. So that's how I see it.
Okay, and so again, I think this will require more discussion and debate, because I don't necessarily agree with that, Maria, because I think the bylaw should specify what it should be, and therefore what the role is, right? I personally don't think it should be I have an option. It's like if you're putting yourself forward as for a position, what the position is, and that's the roles and responsibilities. But again, I think probably for another time.
Sorry, are you saying that the bylaws should stipulate whether there's co-chairs or a chair and vice chair? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do, and it should be very clear as to what the roles and responsibilities are. And
sure.
It's not a pick or choose. I don't think. Any organization I've been a part of, you don't build structure around the people. You build the structure, and then you fill it. So yeah, I think it's up to us as the committee, and I think it's very much it's very much within our control how those bylaws are written. Granted, we have to conform to, of course, number one, the regs, but the regs don't delve into the Catholicity or non-Catholicity of chairs, but the board's procedure does. So it starts from there, and then it's up to us to, right?
I guess I would just say, I hear what you're saying. I guess I would just say it's a volunteer organization, and you may have in any given year someone who doesn't really want to be a co-chair, right? But they'd be happy to be a vice chair. So I just see it as providing kind of flexibility that way. So
okay.
Anyway, that's my opinion, but
yeah, no, fair enough. Okay. All right. Okay, thanks for that, Maria. What else, folks? Aside from the whole co-chair thing, just the document itself, other sections of it, anything that you want clarification on? Olu.
Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Good, man. Good.
Long time.
Yeah, feels like it.
Now, if we turn to just a little clarification here. If we turn to section 40. That's on page 16, and subsection 6 of 46. Okay. Okay. It says the chair or co-chair of the parent committee shall ensure that the notice of each meeting is provided to all members of the committee at least 5 days before the meeting by delivering a notice to each member by email or regular mail and posting the notice on the website. Now, 7 says, for the purpose of subsection 6, notice by regular mail is provided 5 days before the meeting if it is mailed 5 days before the meeting. Now, if it is mailed 5 days before the meeting, then that cannot be 5 days because I will get it less than 5 days to the meeting. So, if the mail is slow, which a lot of times it could be, you might even get it after the meeting. It could come 6 days later. So I think that was confusing because email comes immediately, but regular mail does not. It could take time. It could arrive a day to the meeting.
Yeah. So that's in the regs, right? The Education Act regulations, of which we have no say or control. Yeah. So and we all know, of course, in this day and age, we're not using regular mail. In any event. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. There's probably other items in the regs that are not as clear as they could be. So yeah, I mean, I think our job with the bylaws is to, I mean, and thankfully the regs allow and require us to write our own bylaws. So with the hope that we can make them clear and make sense, from a just an intuitive standpoint as well as a kind of a procedural standpoint. So hopefully our bylaws, number one, they obviously have to align to the regs, and number two, we then make them work. We then make them work for us. So I think in terms of how that particular part of the regs is written, I think we're on side because we don't use regular mail. So hopefully that kind of addresses that.
Yeah, it should be mailed out maybe 10 days before or something to give enough time.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that we're going to write that into our bylaws, Olu.
Okay.
Right, because it's just not our practice to use regular mail. If I don't know, if somehow our electronic means of communication were interrupted and we had to resort to regular mail, then maybe, but until that time.
All right, fair enough.
I think okay, but yeah, no, I know, I agree. Sometimes the regulations, they sounded right at the time, but who knows?
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. No, thanks, Ola.
Right.
Okay, Nancy.
Olu, I just want to add a little bit of clarification for that one, especially because, yes, it's part of what the regulation says. If we had somebody on CPIC that we knew was dependent on mail, okay, we would make those accommodations. The only thing that would change is that together with the chairs, the co-chairs, with Jerry and Jen, for example, we meet periodically throughout the month to come up with that CPIC agenda. And because we're so current, especially like with COVID and everything, we have to revisit things and we have to really identify what's most important that we're bringing to that meeting. So if we're planning 10 days ahead of time to make sure that the mail goes to somebody who was supposed to get mail, we may be missing current time. So that's sort of like, I think the fact that everything is virtual now and we do everything this way, it makes us more current and makes us be able to be more efficient with what that agenda is about. And that it's current, right? So, but I think there is, if we found out that there's somebody on CPIC who actually couldn't receive email and we had to communicate with them through snail mail, then we would have to make those provisions.
All right, fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
Good one. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes great sense. Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, we just take it so much for granted, our ability to use electronic means. You never know though. Okay. Anything else? And maybe too, aside from just questions, I'd welcome just your open thoughts and feedback without a question necessarily. Do you like what you see? Would you perhaps expected something different? Anything at all, guys? I mean, let's kind of hash this out, because I mean it is our bylaw document, so it's pretty important, and I mean obviously we'd like to get it right. Notwithstanding, amendments are still possible, of course. Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, one small thing, just a housekeeping thing. Under bylaw 5, it repeats 1 to 5, I think. It goes 5.1 to 5.5, and then starts again at 5.1. So just
Oh, right, you are.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, good catch.
Yeah. And I think between two of them, there's a line space missing, but just a housekeeping thing.
Okay, sure.
One other thing I wondered about, and I don't know if this belongs in this discussion or later, but a couple times it talks about CPIC deciding different things, right? As for example, whether or not we replace the community rep position, that's a CPIC decision. So I just wondered if it would be helpful to define what that means. Like, does that mean, when CPICs make a decision, does that mean a majority vote? Is that something that should just be assumed? I don't know, but I think the more clear you are, the better it is, especially in a document like this. So that was one comment that I had, and I don't know if that comes in a later revision.
Well, as it is in there now, the way it's written is that our decisions are made by consensus where possible, and if not, a simple majority rules.
Well, and that's another thing. I think that word consensus is difficult, and if you look it up, you'll find. I remember looking at it and finding 3 different definitions. Sometimes it's defined as, unanimous, everyone agrees. Sometimes it's defined as a simple majority. Sometimes it's defined as a significant majority. So I think consensus is a bit of a subjective word, but that that can come in a later discussion, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I mean, and again, understanding that we're not setting policy for the board. I mean, although when we're making more kind of material decisions, such as who will be chair, who will be co-chair, who will be community rep, how our bylaws should be written, things of that nature that have more permanence. Those typically go to a vote anyway. So I think where consensus is referred to is in the context of, do we agree that we should have these 3 subcommittees this year, and that's generally kind of is done by consensus. So by nodding of heads or further discussion, and a general agreement in the room that those work, those committees work. So just to give an example. So I think it's the context in which it's used, because again, in my experience so far, anytime we've had to make any kind of material decision, it goes to a vote. So, but yeah, absolutely, we can further discuss it and see if it warrants further clarification of the bylaws themselves. Joel.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, sorry, Maria. Go ahead.
No, I just gonna say quickly. Just it might sound nitpicky, but I find that the more precise that you are, sometimes it just avoids problems possibly in the future. That's it. So.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Okay, Joel.
Yeah, I was just noticing in terms of resignations and filling vacancies, it's pretty clear that the bylaws give us the leniency to do that. I'm just throwing it out there. Would it make sense for us to have time limits on how long we can go with a spot vacant? The point being is that it says like we're supposed, like if a parent representative resigns, we're supposed to find someone to fill it. That's all well and good, but it doesn't say we have 3 months. to fill it. Like there's nothing stopping us from going like a full 2-year term, and then that, you know, in August 1 we fill it and say, hey, we filled our we followed the rules, but not really. So like it might make sense to add some language in there saying, you know, within 3 months time of the resignation, we would have started the process of finding somebody to fill the resignation spot, just to kind of, so it's not something we can keep putting off for months at a time to do that. Just a thought that I throw out there.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Because if someone for some reason resigns, you know, 1 month into a 2-year term, you know, I mean, it's one thing if it's almost the end of the school year and their term's up in a couple months. Now I hear what you're saying, but again, yeah, that'd be something that we would table for a future amendment, but not in this version of the document, obviously, because again, the goal here, folks, is hopefully by the April meeting, we can pass this document into being to replace the old version, and then from there forward, we tackle the bylaws one at a time to update, improve, and improve them. But yeah, that'd be one, Joel, for sure. That's worthy of discussion. Yep. Okay. Okay. Any comments about the document, its current state? Yeah, Maria?
I think the document looks fabulous, and the subcommittee did an amazing job. Just want to say that. I did have 2 things, and I don't know if they're for this stage or later, but I'll just throw them out there. I think it's 1.2 that talks about a vote by sealed ballot, and I thought, given our current situation, maybe secret ballot would be better, right? Because a sealed ballot's hard to do virtually. Is it 1.2? Yeah. But yeah. So I don't know if that's for this. You know, right now we're just talking about the sort of the structure of the document. I don't know if that's considered a more substantive change. But also in 1.4, sorry.
I think just to address that one quickly, Maria, I think for now, until if we want to make a language change there, I think we can certainly consider that. But for now, I think we could interpret the word sealed to mean secret. So if we have to vote by way of, you know, an email to, you know, say Nancy, as Nancy doesn't have a vote, you know, by that way we can consider that quote unquote sealed. But yeah.
I'm a bit sensitive to that one because in our school council, someone had an issue with the fact that we were voting virtually because the bylaws talked about a secret ballot, when in fact it was still secret. Yeah. So it's just one that I'm, you know, you never know, right? So it's surprising sometimes things that people can turn into an issue. But the other one was 1.4 orientation. It talks about orientation for new CPIC members. But I think our practice has been any nominees must require an orientation, right? So I guess if this is what the bylaws say right now, then that would be a more substantive change. But it doesn't reflect our practice, I didn't think.
Yeah. So yeah, this requires a bit of clarification because this came up recently, of course, with our information night that we held last night, in fact, for nominees. So the information night is just that, an information night. It's not an orientation. We don't get into the same things as what is considered here in B 1.4, and that is we don't cover off ethical practices, procedures, how meetings are conducted, review of bylaws. That is all for actually newly elected members at the beginning of the new school year. So two very different things with 2 very different purposes. So our bylaws don't cover the information night. for nominees. At least I don't think we
Okay.
included it. Yeah. So
Yeah, I don't
no.
remember.
Yeah. So two very different things.
Okay, so that's interesting. I hadn't read it that way because I guess I'm familiar with what the practice has been. So I don't remember an orientation session.
Yeah, it really just took the form of at the first meeting. We reviewed the bylaws, we reviewed the practices stuff, the procedures. I mean, could the orientation be a little more robust? Probably. So in practice, how we execute against that bylaw is probably worth looking at as well.
So if that information session is going to continue to be a requirement, it would make sense to be in the bylaws. But again, that's for the next round.
Yeah. Yeah. Bingo. Exactly. Yeah. Nancy.
First of all, thank you to Jerry and Jen who did host that that meeting last night for new people who have been nominated for CPIC. They did a really great job last night. It was very professional. It's posted to the CPIC site on the board's website for anybody who was looking to submit a nomination and weren't able to attend. I think this year, Jerry, and how I can speak to it just because I was new at that point, and with the fact how everything really got pushed back in terms of when the election happened and new members came in and all the things that we were doing almost behind the scenes, I see B1.4 is being one of the things that we do because we will have our CPIC members right from the get-go in September now. This could be the framework that we use for our starting meeting. Okay, that we can use that as an orientation. And if we feel as a group going forward past this, that maybe we create something if we think it's necessary for the new members, like the session that was held last night. Because it was very professional and it really gave people an opportunity to ask questions and work through some things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, perhaps it should be a separate session entirely. In the fall. There's probably not much sense in doing it, at the end of this school year, because let's face it, everyone will forget what we covered in June, come September. So yeah, maybe it's a separate session, or again, is it part and parcel of the first meeting, or does it get lost or watered down if it's within a regular meeting? So yeah, that we can kind of, I think, nail down after this. Yeah. Maria, hand up from before or another comment?
Yeah, sorry, that's from before. I'll take it down.
Okay, no problem. Thanks. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think at this point, thanks everyone for their comments, questions. It helps just kind of hash it out. So that's all very good. So I think at this point, unless there's anything else anyone else wanted to add, we can probably kind of cap it there. And I guess what I'd ask is that if and perhaps this is a rhetorical question, but if I could get some responses offline, that would be great. If this were to be tabled at the meeting in April, pending some obviously cleaning up of the table of contents and that kind of thing, and a couple little editorial items that were pointed out, if presented as is, would the committee be amenable to adopting it as is? I guess that would be my question. So think about that, please, because that's exactly what we're going to ask you to do come the April meeting. So if anyone's got concerns about the document or think it should be, if there's parts of it you want revisited, and again, not speaking about material changes to the bylaws themselves, but rather structurally, how it flows, how it's presented, the language, that kind of thing. Please do raise it in the next week or so at most, so that we can consider and potentially adopt any further changes before we table it for adoption. Because I think we need to get this in front of you at least 5 days before before the meeting. So any final changes would have to be done before then. When is our April meeting? Someone remind me. Anyone know when our April meeting is?
I want to say the 7th, Jerry, but I don't have it in my calendar for that day.
Yeah, I don't have it in my
Nancy,
calendar.
do you
yet.
have it in yours?
I think it is the 7th because it changed, right? Because of the spring break.
Right, it was during the March break, so we
Yeah,
moved
that's
it.
right. We
So we
rescheduled
moved it to the 7th and not to the week after?
Yeah,
Correct,
I
because
had
it's too close to the May meeting, the week
Okay.
after.
That's right.
Okay, I'll get Andrea
Yeah.
to send the invite for that then, tomorrow. I'll get her to
Yes,
send us the
please.
invite. Okay, no problem.
And also the
That's right.
website, I think, needs to be updated. I think it's still showing the 14th or whatever.
Okay,
Okay. So there we go, folks. So we're literally 2 weeks to the day. So yeah, any other little revisions or changes you want to make, do by all means send them to me, and we'll work to consolidate them and get this document back to you this time next week. So you've got fully a week with it, and then we can vote on it on April 7th. Okay. Okay, great. All right. So. Moving on to our other agenda item, and that is the community rep position. Jen, did you want to run with this this discussion?
Sure. The community rep position, as Jerry mentioned, is a position we can choose to fill this year, given that there's 3 months left. We can choose to fill it or leave it vacant and have it filled for September 1st. So at this point, we want to know, for our first question is whether or not we think as a group that we would like to fill the position. And the second part of that question is, if so, are there people that you might know of that might be interested in the position? So just remember that position is a community representative, is not a parent, a current parent of any students in the Halton Catholic District School Board, but it is somebody in our community. So I guess I'm going to open it up first just to open up to the floor and see what people's thoughts are about replacing the position for the rest of the term. Maria?
I just wanted to clarify, you said not a parent, but it can be a parent, right? It just doesn't have to be a parent. I think that's...
Jerry, can you jump in here? I believe that they're not supposed to be a parent.
Well, I mean, I think historically, it's not been apparent. There's nothing, and again, we don't have it in our bylaws one way or the other. So, and it technically could be, but I would suggest just out of good practice, it's not meant to be yet another parent position. It's meant to be more of an independent voice from within the community. But again, bylaws don't prohibit it from being a parent. Yeah. So, and again, just as a committee, so I think we need to think about, so as we look to fill the position, what are we looking for? I mean, if it's another parent voice we want, well, then let's create another parent position. But because I don't think that's the purpose. Personally, don't think that's the purpose of the community rep. It's meant to be someone who's got some connection with the larger community and is bringing that voice to the table and working to support our agenda, our collective agenda, but perhaps not as a parent. So I don't know. That felt like a wishy-washy answer, but
no, I think it makes sense though, Jerry, because we do have a lot of parents on the committee. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Maria. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say it absolutely makes sense. I was just clarifying because, like as Jerry said, it does. Yeah. There's no rule that says it can't be, right? So, yeah. But I think he made some good points there about maybe that's not really the best use of that position. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not meant to be a runner-up position for a parent that didn't otherwise get voted in. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, we wouldn't want it to be used or viewed that way.
Does anybody have any thoughts about whether or not they think the position should be filled this year?
So I shared with Jen already. I'll share with everyone now that there's a lady who came to mind for the position, to be very honest, and I think a number of you probably know her. She's been involved in the Catholic school system for quite some time because she did have children in the board. She no longer does. Her name is Pat Grizzoni, and she's a long time strong advocate of Catholic education, highly involved in her community, in the parish, with the schools that her kids went to, and beyond. She's, by all accounts, has been a terrific resource and a very, very kind of action-oriented person in the community. She came to mind. In fact, I'll share with you a little bit of background there. Pat actually ran for CPIC last time, but then it came to light that in fact her last child had graduated, so therefore she wasn't eligible. And because of our compressed timelines and the push out of the election and everything, unfortunately she didn't have an opportunity to run for the community rep position. We had already filled it again with David by that time. So she came kind of top of mind for me, and she's someone that I'd put forward personally, and advocate for, and kind of give my thumbs up to, if she were to want to pursue it. So that's someone, and that's someone that I think that could easily kind of come into the role for the balance of this year, and because she's already so actively involved, it would be easy for her to engage. And then come the fall, we'd have to revisit, though, because it is a 1-year position, right? So it has to be refilled every fall. So that's one person I would suggest if we were to fill it for the short term, that gives her a chance to try out the position, gives us a chance as a committee to see her in action, and then we decide in the fall again. So, and I'm seeing here we're getting some props for Pat here. So that's one person. She certainly doesn't have to be the only consideration or candidate, but I throw that out there.
Go ahead, Olu.
I just seconding what Jerry said. I think that's an excellent choice because she's already very, very, very engaged in the community from her many years as schools council chair in both Queen of Heaven, Holy Rosary, and Bishop Redding, and we served together at Bishop Redding School Council, and I was quite impressed with the amount of vendors she has access to in the community when it comes to fundraising and for the school and all that. So she's a very, very good choice for that.
Thanks, Olu. Does anybody else have, not that you have to decide tonight, but we want to put it out there so you guys can think about if there's anyone that might be interested in the position. We're not going to obviously vote on it this evening. We wanted to more discuss, number one, if we want to fill the position this year, and then number two, put it out there that if there are any candidates that any of you know of that you think might be interested in the role, we would have to, Jerry, you can jump in here, but I think the process is we would have to have them come to a meeting and speak, give us their 2 cents as to why they would like the role, and at that point we would vote.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's how it would be typically handled every fall. So I think we'd probably treat it the same way, even if it's kind of midterm like we are now. have any potential nominees or candidates present themselves at the next available meeting, and then we vote. After they've kind of left the meeting, I suppose. In this case, normally if we did this face to face, it literally would be a paper ballot. Everyone fills out and passes it. It gets tabulated right on the spot, and the person becomes appointed based on that election. So electronically, we just do it a little bit differently, I'd say. But yeah, that'd be the idea, I'd say, unless anyone had different thoughts. But because again, our bylaws are not that prescriptive as to how it has to work, but just based on practice. There was another person, an individual on the call last night that has expressed an interest in the community rep position. They had originally put themselves forward as a parent rep, but they were kind of openly debating the merits of being a parent rep, given that their child may be leaving the Catholic school system next year. So when the idea of community rep came up, he kind of latched onto that. So that's another individual that's kind of put himself forward as a potential community rep person. So, I mean, again, if we do want to fill it this year, we would circle back to that person and ask if they do want to in fact present themselves at the next meeting. So there's potentially two candidates that would be presented at the next meeting. Maria, sorry, Jen, you're running this one.
No, go ahead, Maria. Yeah, go ahead.
Just get rolling.
We're laid back.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, it sounds like there's, a couple people that have maybe expressed an interest because they're aware that the position is or might be available. But I think it would be fair, if we're going to do that, to, wouldn't it be fair to open it up, put a notice out there so that, because there could be people that might be interested and just don't know that it's happening. So that would be
it's a good point, Maria. And Jerry and I have talked about this. I guess our struggle is, where do you put it out there? Because any kind of correspondence that comes from the Catholic School Board is going to parents. So I guess we could go through that mechanism as well. But if our intention is to try to gather some candidates that actually represent the community, that are independent voices, then what's the best way to reach people? And obviously, it would be ideal to have somebody who's familiar with the system, if possible, familiar with CPIC and school councils, but at least familiar with the Halton Catholic District School Board. We don't want to gather an enormous amount of candidates that have nothing to do with the school board. So we struggled with that, and that's why we kind of thought that perhaps between all of us, we all know lots of people in the community, that we might be able to gather enough qualified candidates, but I'm open to hear any suggestions you have in other ways we might be able to gather some more.
Well, I guess to that point, I mean, you could just go through the school councils, right? Letting all the school council chairs know, because again, that's an even bigger network of people that may know people. I don't know if there's a way, and recognizing that time is kind of limited here. If we're going to do it, we should do it soon, because the school year's, coming to a close soon. But, through parishes maybe would be another way. And I guess even just the board's website and through their social media. So anyone who's kind of following would maybe fit the criteria of what you've described there. Yep. Those are just some thoughts.
I think those are all good suggestions. I don't have a problem with any of those. Jerry or Nancy, do you see any concerns with any of those?
No, and it part of me says it should be a more open process. Like my observation, right or wrong, from the past is that it's kind of been filled by individuals that are kind of close to the organization, and for some of the reasons you mentioned, Jen, that's probably a good thing. If we make it, my concern is that if we make it so open to the broader community, that what are we going to attract? Because and an understanding our vetting process is not a rigorous one. It's, you know, a couple candidates are presented at the September meeting. They get up and talk for a few minutes to us, and then we decide. So if they don't come with any kind of connection to our Catholic school community already, who's vouching for them, who's, you know, kind of, you know, their supporter or sponsor, for lack of a better term. Do you know what I mean? So, like, just how open do we want to make the process? For fear of, you know, do we actually have too much choice and no reasonable way to vet the candidates properly, and for myriad of reasons. Yeah, I hope that made some sense. But I guess I just say let's be careful what we wish for if we make it a fully open process. But maybe there's a way to accomplish, you know, opening up a little bit, but without exposing ourselves either. Yeah, I hope I don't know, I'm trying to be, you know, not be indelicate.
Nancy, did you want to add to that?
Oh.
Oh, sorry. I just want to see if Nancy had anything else to add to that, Maria.
Thank you, Jerry. I think you are good to be cautious with it, and it is a position that the CPIC members get to vote on. What should happen is you're choosing a community rep who adds to what the mandate of CPIC is for that year. Or, you know what I mean? So if you decide on what your goals are as a committee, who do you need from the community to help foster those goals? Okay. If it is about Catholic education and making that more robust, you know what I mean? You're going to go with that type of a voice who's going to contribute. Okay. So that's why it needs to be that you as CPIC members think about what your mandate is and identify who the candidates you may want to reach out to about this position. Not so much as the at-large in that big group. You can do it that way too, but remember, it's your community rep to support the goals of your CPIC committee. So you got to keep that in mind, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, and I think I've said it a couple times. I'm at a school, I'm going to use St. Anne's as the example. It's a new school community. We were having so many issues with not enough parking and bylaws and things like that. And so we reached out to somebody in the community who would be able to push forward the issue to the city of Burlington, who could help with the bylaws around the neighborhood, who could help with parking, who could help, and was that voice. That was 1 year. That was what the issue was, and we needed to do that. The next year was more about getting parents more engaged with going to the church and doing things with that. So we reached out to the parish community to find out, is there somebody who could be that liaison with the school and try to draw more of our parents into the school, the church, right? So I just offer those as just some examples, but think about that's your community rep is to push what this committee has decided is their mandate and their goals for next year and how they can have that voice be more robust. Okay, I hope that helps clarify that a little bit.
Maria, did you want to jump back in there?
Well, I just wanted to say, and I think Nancy kind of touched on it, at the end of the day, like, there's all good points everybody has brought up. I'm not disagreeing with any of it, but at the end of the day, it's a vote, right? So we do get to vote. So even if you open it wide and there's somebody who's really not appropriate, hopefully, you know, they don't get elected. We could talk about the pros and cons of democracy, right? But I mean, it's the same with all of us, right? It's opened up pretty wide for all the parent members. Anybody can apply to be a parent member. I'd like to think the process works well because we're all great people here. But again, you know, you could end up with somebody who's got a certain motive or whatever.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
It is subject to a vote at the end of the day. But I do like the idea of us clarifying as a group, what is it that what kind of role do we want this person to play, so that we're clear, so that when people are voting, hopefully, you know, everyone's kind of keeping the same thing in mind, and that should lead to a good choice, I guess. But that's it.
Yeah,
it's a good point. Yeah. Joel, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I want to second what Nancy just said, that if we're going to choose a community rep, it should be somebody who's going to advocate what we want to do and to help outreach to the community. Which kind of brings me to my second point is, why don't we defer filling this spot till next year, to the next elected CPIC committee? It would be up to them to go out and recruit a community representative, because I don't believe that they have to start on day one. Would it not make more sense for the committee to sit down and say what do we want to do, reach out and recruit, and then vote on the replacement body, instead of, because right now the logistics of it mean we throw out nominations, and we cast it out. We hope somebody's going to sign up that we're like, yes, this is exactly the person that we want, and let's all vote for them and have them on. You have to take into consideration, what if you don't get anybody who signs up, A, or two, somebody who comes on and says, I don't care what your agenda is, I want to do what I want to do, I'm going to advocate for me, and you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's one of those things that maybe the next committee should take a bit more ownership of it and come together and get it, and rather than rush to fill it because it's empty. I would suggest we postpone it till the next elected committee, and have them kind of flesh it out and maybe do a little bit more of a research component to almost like a hiring committee to fill it with somebody that will mesh well with them, as opposed to being imposed on them. Just my thoughts.
Those are good points, Joel. I guess my thought was I would really like to have all the parent reps will be in place by the end of June. And it would be really nice to have the community rep selected so that September we kind of hit the ground running. So I guess I'm a bit personally conflicted with waiting until September to figure out what our goals are and our mandate, although it makes perfect sense, because how many months is that going to take to get that person on? Part of me thinks what you're suggesting makes total sense, but perhaps we should be doing that at the end of this year as a committee, deciding what the goals and stuff should be for next year's committee.
I'm absolutely cool with that as well. I think like there should be. I guess what I'm saying is we should take a bit more ownership of this process, because this member has no constituency that they have to report back to. Like as a parent rep, you and I technically were beholden to the school councils of our respective
district, region.
Thank you. Jurisdictions, whatever it is. The community rep is a unique role. It's not. They have no vote on any decisions that we make.
Correct.
And they're not really beholden to any constituency that they have to go and report back to. They're really meant for it to be our tool to say to the community, hey, we need your input, or we want a little bit more X, Y, and Z, or whatever have you. So it might be a consensus that once the new committee is elected, once we have the replacement people, it might make sense to have them come in for a meeting and just to sit in, see how this goes, and to discuss that, and maybe have an ad hoc, more of a freewheeling meeting that we can flesh out a bit more of what the next committee wants to do.
Okay.
Because I know I'm myself, I'm stepping away when my term is done, and somebody else will come in and replace me. But if that person who's elected wants to talk with me about what to do, whatever, like that kind of thing, and we can flesh. They can say, well, this is what the next iteration of the CPIC wants to do something. They can kind of start the planning process already. So you're right. So September 1, they're hitting the ground running,
right?
And they can move that forward. Just my thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Joel. Maria, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to clarify it. The bylaws do stipulate that the community rep is elected in the first meeting, so we can't really do that. Like wait for the new committee. But also the community rep does have a vote, and that's actually in the bylaws, and that's from the legislation. So that's not even something that we can change. So just wanted to mention those two things.
Okay, thanks, Maria. I wasn't aware of that. That's good to know. Sarah, you got your hand up?
Yes, all I was going to say was I think a lot of where this conversation is going is maybe it makes sense to wait for the next committee to bring in the community rep, because it sounds like we're really discussing a lot about who this person should be, and it's not going to be a simple thing to just find somebody and get them appointed. And by the time we do this, it's going to be, they're going to have one meeting left and then their term's going to be done. So it might make more sense to just wait on this position until next year.
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this issue? Jerry, how do you want to proceed? I'm fine either way with waiting to next year or filling it now. I'm not sure. Is this something that we need to kind of get a consensus on?
Yeah,
I use the word loosely, Maria. Consensus.
I mean, it'd be good.
I didn't even catch that.
What's that? Sorry, I missed that too.
I just said consensus, whatever definition of that is.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I think we said we weren't going to do any voting tonight, but I wonder if we should kind of go around the table and again, folks, there's no need for this to be a sealed ballot situation, but if everyone could perhaps declare, and we certainly do have enough representation here for quorum, so we could come to a decision here as to whether or not we want to have candidates attend the meeting in 2 weeks and potentially fill the position. Now, it could be a vote too. Remember that even after the candidates are presented, that we decide not to fill it. So that is a possible outcome too. Yeah. It's not that we have to fill it even if candidates are put forward. We do have that privilege. So that'd be vote number one: is do we present candidates at the next meeting or not at all, and we just push it off to next year after we've had time to properly decide how we want to recruit, the type of individual we're looking for to help support our mandate next year. And again, my suggestion being that if we did take someone on now, it would only be from now until, I mean, technically the term goes to August, but really to the end of the school year. So it is very, pretty much very, very temporary,
3
really.
months.
Yeah. So, I will say this. It's my last comment on it, and then maybe Jen, you want to take it to a vote. Is if we got someone like a Pat Grisoni, they're already engaged. They're already kind of acting like a community rep for Catholic education. So to have an extra pair of hands for the rest of the school year, someone with some great energy, might be a great pickup for us. That's kind of all I'm seeing, how I'm kind of seeing it. But again, not a must do from my perspective. If the will of the committee is to put it off to the fall, I have no bones about that either. So, but I think we need to put it to. So I see Marvin's got his hand up.
Yeah,
so
I was just gonna say Marvin, and then we'll take it to a vote. Go ahead, Marvin.
Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I'm just using my earbuds here. I'm just a little confused, Jerry and Jen, because I think what we are in tonight is a CPIC bylaw review meeting, right? And I think if you are making any decisions like this, it has to be a proper meeting with an agenda. Just my comments, and I don't think, because CPIC is a mandated group, so there has to be an agenda, it has to be open. This is just my comments.
Well, it was on the agenda for tonight, Marvin. There were two agenda items. This was one of them.
So yeah, because I'm just looking at when you're doing a vote, I think it has to be in a properly called for meeting. Just my thoughts, but again, you all can decide.
I thought it was a properly called for meeting because we called the special meeting in advance of the time required under the bylaw, and we do have quorum. So am I missing something? Okay.
No, because I'm looking at my calendar. It's called CPIC bylaw review meeting, and I came to the meeting with the intention of bylaw reviews. And so I might be wrong. I might be wrong.
It might just be the way it was enabled when Nancy sent out the invitation, but the actual emails, both of them specified that there were two agenda items. Okay.
I'm just checking on you
guys.
No
problem at all. No problem.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Always good to follow procedures.
Yeah.
Okay, with that.
to be clear, we're not voting on an actual community rep. Just whether or not we want to consider replacing the community rep at the next meeting.
Sure, that's fine. I just was clarifying my thought.
Yep. No, thanks, Marvin. Last thing we want to do is step out of line.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, just our parent members are voting, is that correct? Okay, so we'll just go around the room with maybe yes, you would like to fill the position, or you prefer to wait till September. Joel?
I'll say I'll wait until September, so no.
Okay. And Lydia? Okay, we'll come back to Lydia maybe. Maria?
Sorry, I was having trouble with the mute. I would be in favor of filling the position, actually.
Okay. Olu?
I'll be in favor of filling the position to set the cost for the new CPIC members coming in next year.
Okay. Sarah?
Waiting until the next.
Okay. And Sarah Siwash?
Waiting until the next.
Okay. Steve?
Waiting till next year.
Okay. I'll go back to see if Lydia is able to cast a vote. No. Okay. Jerry?
Fill it now.
Okay. That leaves us at 4 and 3. And I would have said fill it now. Go ahead, Maria.
I was going to say, I think you can vote, no?
I can vote. It's just going to be split because I would say
okay.
fill it now, just because I know Pat personally, I think she'd be a great candidate as well. But I don't think that gets us anywhere because now we're 4 and 4.
Oh dear.
Did we actually go back to Lydia?
Yes. Is Lydia, are you in, Lydia, if you're not on microphone,
I think she's now the deciding.
Yeah. Lydia, are you able to type in the chat if your microphone does not work? No. I'm not seeing any response in the chat. So I don't know, what would your thoughts be? My thoughts would be if there's not a clear majority, then perhaps we shouldn't go forward. Someone suggested we call her. I do not have a number to call her at.
Jen, another suggestion, and maybe further to Marvin's point, and given that we have a tie, we could take it to the full CPIC committee.
We could, but the problem with that is that we wouldn't be able to do that till April, and then they'd have to come to the May meeting.
Yeah.
And it just, then it kind of doesn't seem worthwhile.
Right. Okay.
Marvin, did you have thoughts?
We are already in the month of March, right? So when is our next meeting? April, right?
April 7th.
So I don't think it's too much of a time. It's, I think it's doable, right? In the month of April. And you can still then have the next person come in right after that, or wait till September and you know, whatever. But it's not too much time. It's just a month, and month will fly by.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, Marvin, is if we vote them in let's say we vote to go forward in April, and then we do our votes in May, that term only goes, like Jerry said, to the end of August. So they'd only be at one of our meetings. So at that point, it just wouldn't be worthwhile filling.
Correct. I mean, we are at almost at the end of the year now itself. Okay.
Yeah, we're 7 out of 10 months through the school year.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's really not going to make a difference at this point. Whatever path you decide to go, whether you vote now or vote in September, it's going to make no difference. I mean, as far as delivering is concerned.
Right. Jerry, did you have something to say?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It just as I'm listening to the discussion, you know what? I mean, I think unless we have a clear mandate to fill it now, I think the decision is to
Just
defer
leave
it.
it. Yeah, if we don't have a clear majority,
Yeah.
and we don't have a mandate, I agree. Okay, that's fine. That's no problem at all. Like, it's
I mean,
all of us lots of time to
Does
think about how we
does
want to
anyone
fill
have
the
a does
position.
anyone have a anyone who voted to fill it now? Does anyone have a grievance with that? Just trying to be respectful of.
So that was Olu, Maria, and you and myself.
To be honest, I was somewhat indifferent, so I'm fine, and the vote is what it is. So
Yeah.
I respect that too.
Olu, do you have any issues with deferring?
I'm just a bit concerned about the fact that the new CPIC coming in September, because I will also finish my term. The time is coming to an end. What experience they will have, you know, in being able to choose the right candidate for this, because currently now some of us have 2 or 4 year experience with being on many school councils, and we've seen, we do know school councils and members of school councils where certain members were very much engaged in school councils and doing things. So my thought was that if we can use our experience to get the ball rolling for the bunch coming in September, you know, so that's what I was thinking. You know, using our experience to get the ball rolling for the new members of CPIC who will be coming in September, so that they can just start and jump off and not starting to think about who is going to be this or that. That's all.
It's a good point, Olu. I'm kind of hopeful that if we as a committee are kind of setting our goals for CPIC for next year, and there will be at least half of the current committee members on the committee next year, that we will be able to advertise and find some candidates that fulfill the kind of experience and connections that we're looking for. And the next group will kind of just take that over. So we'll set all the goals out. We'll set out the parameters, and the next group will find the candidates. Not to say that we can't as well. I mean, candidates can come from any of us as well. But then we would be able to present them at the September meeting. So I'm hopeful that we won't lose any of that, Olu, just by waiting a few more months, because we will be involved ourselves in setting out those the criteria that we're looking for in a suitable candidate when we set up our goals for next year. Marvin, did you want to say something?
I kind of agree with you, because the way CPIC membership is set up, there's always somebody going to be there. It's not a totally new committee. And I think right now we are setting up processes and procedures which are taking effect, and you can see the engagement of everybody. So I think, yeah, I would say it's not going to make a difference whether they put somebody in now or in September, just a couple of months. I would think if you follow the process, it might be a better thing. Nobody questions you later.
Maria?
Oh, I was just going to say, I have no problem with us, starting the legwork and getting the ball rolling now, but to the point of whether or not it's appropriate to elect somebody in September, that's what's in the bylaws, and that's the way it's always been done. And even if we were to elect someone now, they would have to stand in September again. So if it's an issue of, not having experienced enough committee in September, then that's a whole other question, because that's the way it's always been done, and that's what our bylaws require. So
yeah, very, very true. I second that thought as well. Yeah, and again, and as Marvin pointed out, I think the way the CPIC's been set up is that we will always have an overlap of experienced and new, kind of coming together in the fall. So we'll have to just kind of trust in that process for now.
Okay, so we will leave it as we will not replace the candidate at, not replace the community rep position at this time, but we will work on building out what kind of candidate we want to attract to the position to sit at the meeting in September. Jerry, is there anything else, or are we just ready to sign off for tonight?
I don't think so, and I think we're good. I think we kind of accomplished what we wanted to tonight. So just again, I suppose just to quickly recap. So again, folks, if there is anything else you wanted to contribute to the bylaw document, please do so in the next few days, because we'll need to turn that document around again by this time next week for your kind of final perusal before the April 7th meeting, wherein we will vote to adopt the new version of the document. Okay, I think that's kind of the only takeaway, and then we've decided on the community rep thing, so I think we're good.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody, for your time. And we'll look forward to speaking with you on the 7th.
Yeah, thanks again for accommodating the special meeting, everyone, and the extra time. Always
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah.
Good night.
Folks, have a good night. See you soon.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.